All righty, guys, welcome back to iCoach Nutrition Radio. Today, I have a very special guest, somebody that I've had the pleasure of literally working with now for pretty much my whole entire journey through the fitness industry. She's been with me since the very, very early days of me being a personal trainer at 24 Hour Fitness, all the way through the days of me competing and coaching CrossFit. And then now, owning my own business here virtually and just so many different seasons of life here over the last, 7 years, I guess it's been, right?
Golly, yeah, wow.
Something like that. So many different seasons of life that we're going to get to talk through, but this is going to be a part 1 of 2 series. We're going to do one now, and then we're going to do another one once we reach kind of her final end goal here. But anyways, without further ado, Mechiel, what's going on, my friend? How are you? Thanks for taking the time for doing this podcast today. I appreciate it.
You know me, Coach. Anything for you. Anything for you.
Oh man. So Mechiel is literally the client I've worked with longer than anyone else, right? And I want to take it back to really just be able to share. I mean, we have like this little women's empowerment group within the one-on-one coaching clients that I have. And she's in that group, and we, it's all women, and we talk, and basically it's just a support group, right? Because everybody's kind of going through their own struggles there. But she's definitely the veteran of the group, if you will, the OG of the group, if you will, right? And I feel like every time she talks, you can just tell the tenure, if you will, in terms of the mindset, right, versus some of the newer ones. So y'all are in for a treat. I'm excited for this podcast. Let's take it all the way back to before we even started working together, and kind of share just with the listeners, like, where were you at, kind of in your nutrition and fitness journey before we even started working together at 24 Hour Fitness?
I tell you what, it has been a journey. I started out at 24 Hour Fitness, and there was this young pup. I mean, I'm like, who is this guy that's doing these wicked, weird pull-ups from this bar and all this kind of crazy motion? It was Justin, and I was training with somebody else. And I don't even remember the guy's name. And he was trying to get me back into the gym, just get me moving again. And we were moving, we were doing all kinds of things. I was getting stronger, but I wasn't losing any weight. That was back in, 2013, 2014. A friend of mine said, you really should train with Justin. He does CrossFit, but he's a good guy. He's going to be able to help you out. And I'm like, I am not doing CrossFit. That thing just intimidated the crud out of me. So kept working with this guy at 24 Hour, and sooner or later that guy was going to be moving on. And again, I wasn't getting any results. And my friend said, really, talk to Justin. So I go over, Justin and I, he had left 24 Hour. Dude, you had left. You were working in some guy's garage, I think Dustin or something. And we meet over there. We're in this garage, and we're at the end of this workout, and I'll never forget. You said, get on the rower. Let's go 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off, before I ever knew how to spell Tabata. And we're doing this workout. And he's calling it an assessment. I'm calling it trying to kill Mechiel, is what I'm calling it, because it was so hard. And he gets on that rower, and I'm rowing, and I'm about ready to stop. And he says, come on, you can do anything for 20 minutes. And I got to be honest with you, that set the tone for everything that we've done since. Is you just kind of, he crosses his arms with that big old chest he's got, and he looks at you and he says, you can do anything for 20 minutes, come on. And you just do it, it really pumps me up. So we started working out of that garage, moved quickly to another garage. This is before you got to Strong. I guess it was like 2015. We went through a journey of weight loss, because I finally got somebody who was going to talk to me about weight loss, not just about working out, but about nutrition. And that's the first time I'd ever heard of macros. I heard about how carbs could be dangerous for you. They're not. They can be your friend. That was a whole mindset change. But we learned about carbs. We learned about working out. We learned about losing weight. And we did. We were very successful. It took us 8 months to drop 34 pounds. And we did. And Justin, again, crosses his arms over his big old chest, and he says, we got to come up with another goal. He's very goal-centered, goal-minded, and that's something that I learned from you as well, is just to be goal-minded. Little goals are okay to take those steps, but what are we going to do, Mechiel? Where are we going to go from here? And he and I both prayed about it, because he knows faith is a very, very much a part of my life. And he said, I've been thinking about it, been praying about it. I said, okay, me too. He said, and this was at Strong. You were at Strong. We were outside and we had just finished a workout outside, and it was blistering hot. And again, I'm dying. It's like kill Mechiel, but I'm feeling good because we finished this workout. He says, I think you should try CrossFit. And I said, that's what I thought too. I want to try CrossFit. So fast forward through the rest of 2015, leading into 2016, he got me ready for the CrossFit Open in 2016. We were going to go on the scaled version, but of course with Justin, there's nothing halfway. So we trained for the RX version. If you guys don't know those terms, so there's RX as written with the weights and whatnot, and then there's scaled, meaning they give you a scaled version of each of the workouts during the Open. And Justin says, let's see how you do. And so he's competing and actually makes it to regionals that year. I remember that was one of the first years you made it to regionals. You worked like a dog. And that's what inspired me so much, was how much you work, how hard you work. It's like, okay, my coach is going to do it. I'm going to do it too. And so we did it. We went through the CrossFit Open, did really, really well, even though I did it scaled. And we were on the verge of going for 2017. And that's when everything started falling off the rails. And that's when I didn't communicate to my coach. My coach forgot to ask me about my nutrition anymore, because we were very focused. We thought we had gotten the nutrition dialed in, and he had taught me all I needed to know. I thought, I'm not going to let him know I'm getting older. My hormones are changing. It was embarrassing. I didn't want to come up, be honest with you about it. I knew the signs were there, but I was going to power through it like I did everything else. You know, you can do anything for a set amount of time, but my body said no. So we got ready all the way into 2017. And I remember it was December of 2017. It was the first time Justin ever stopped me in a workout. And he said, you can't go on. You can't continue. I'm like, yo, what? It's like, no, I keep going. That's my mindset. As an athlete, I keep going. And he said, no. He said, I want you to go right now and find the biggest, fattest burger you can find, and the biggest, fattest slab of French fries with cheese or whatever else you want to put on them. You've got to get some food inside you. You were at a deficit. And that's when he and I both figured out that I was eating probably about 1,000 calories, 1,500 calories a day, too little. And we knew that something was wrong with the hormones by then, but we didn't know what. So we spent all of 2017. I did go compete in the Open, but he also made me stop that as well. And it was devastating. It really was. I had worked so hard to get there and felt the best I'd felt in my entire life. And that's where it started the dark period. So we finally found a doctor who would diagnose what the issues were. And not only had I gone into menopause, and so all of the sex hormones were in their deficits, but because I hadn't fueled myself properly with the right amount of carbs, the right amount of calories, because I wasn't honest with Justin, and he and I weren't even thinking about nutrition. The adrenals were failing. The cortisol levels were at fight or flight mode. When they ran the test, finally found somebody to run the test, it was so high above the charts. They're like, you can't do anything. You cannot get your heart rate up. We have got to get you to get those adrenals down. And that poor thing just kind of shut itself off. It was pulling from every sex hormone, but they were already depleted, and it couldn't find anything else to do. So my energy levels were at an all-time low. And unfortunately, I say unfortunately in hindsight, but unfortunately, I was at a doctor who didn't understand what it meant to me physically and emotionally to go into the gym. And they stopped me from going into the gym for about a year. And I was reading everything I could on the adrenal fatigue and how do you get over it and how do you make it happen and get back in the gym. And they're telling you it could take up to 24 months. I'm like, wait, what? I can't not go into the gym. You don't understand. I'm going to lose everything I've gained and I can't do this. And that dark period got really, 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 really dark. And Justin was doing everything he could. I know, Coach, you were working hard to pull me out of that, but it was a dark place. It was a dark place. My faith is important to me, but I'll be honest, I was angry at God. I thought I'd done everything right. I was doing everything I could for the temple that he had given me to make it healthy, to live a good life. And everybody else I tell will blame it on CrossFit. They'll say, oh, it's CrossFit. You just went all to the extreme. It wasn't CrossFit. It was just not fueling properly, both macros as well as calories, and just the stage of life and not being honest about it to the people that needed to know. And I know you and I have had the conversation, Justin, where you blame yourself for part of it. I blame me for part of it. We both know that there were things we should have both been doing. And I think through this journey, and you talked about how long we've been working together, we both have learned so much, and through trial and error with me, but also through some other clients that you have. And I won't say I'm where I want to be, but certainly the mindset is a lot better than it was, gosh, even 6 months ago. It's a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for sharing that. We'll definitely kind of dive a little deeper into some of these things here. But yeah, I mean, look, I think to sum up, Mechiel, right? And I'm sure there's plenty of you listening to this that will resonate with this, which is, there's different types of people, but she's definitely the one where it's like, once she's bought in and trusts the process and all of that, which she was definitely there by that point when we were doing the whole CrossFit thing. She was like just the person that, will like nothing's ever good enough. Perfectionist, like beat herself up about every last little thing, like ignore, to the point where she would literally ignore, like she said, some of these negative things that are happening. And I see this all the time, right? Especially as I've become more and more aware over the years since I stopped doing CrossFit. But to sum it up, it's overtraining and under eating, and not just doing it, every once in a while, but doing it chronically, right? Doing it chronically for an extended period of time, right? And then, not to mention, right, other stressors in life that played a huge role, right? Because we had stress of, menopause there, right? Which, it's funny, I literally just finished my Girls Gone Strong certification and my pre and postnatal certification, which is a phenomenal certification. I think every male should go through, because obviously you're going to become a lot more educated on women's health and working with women, and it's not something that a lot of coaches prioritize until Girls Gone Strong has kind of came out and made it a point to do so there. So but anyways, yeah, I mean, overtraining and under eating can lead to a lot of issues. And when you have big stresses in your life, like menopause, you have big stressors like competing as a master's athlete in the sport of CrossFit while overtraining and under eating. And then also the just other life stressors as well, right? There was a period of whatever that amount of time was, right? I don't even remember. It was a year and a half.
Where I was unemployed. Where I lost, I was laid off in the middle of all of that and trying to find a doctor that would treat us. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Totally forgot that part. Whew.
So that's a big,
trying to find a job is not, that's one of the big life stressors for sure.
100%. And I think that like, that's another thing a lot of people don't realize is like, you know, maybe it's something like losing a job, maybe it's something like losing a loved one, maybe it's, you know, whatever these like things that are very, you know, traumatizing that happen in life, like these 100% affect our stress levels, which 100% affect, you know, the amount of stress that's on us, right? And we've got to be aware of this because, again, especially when you're an athlete, regardless if you're an athlete, life is about managing these stressors and understanding, you know, hey, if I'm in a season of life where I'm super crazy stressed out, the last thing that I'm going to need to do is, you know, put an excessive stress load on myself, right? Like, for example, like I'm, you know, Jet is going to be here any day now, right? So
any day now.
I just finished, you know, prepping for that whole video shoot, photo shoot over the last 8 months. But now I just shifted from a 5-day workout program into a 3-day workout program, right? Like my goals are completely shifting here over these next 3 months, right? So it's just understanding the stressors in your life and understanding, you know, you can't like have it all. And sometimes, you know, you've got to essentially kind of pick and choose, you know, what your goal, make sure that your goals are realistic based off the amount of stress that you have in your life there at that time, right? Like,
well, and two, Justin, what you've always talked about and drilled into clients these days, and I think this has come out of you coming out of CrossFit, and that is the 80-20 lifestyle. I mean, you've got to give yourself grace to go out and have that reset or cheat meal, whatever we call it these days. You've got to give yourself grace to say, you know what, I'm not feeling it today. The gym is not where I need to be for whatever reason. Maybe the body's having difficulty. Maybe you're, you know, stressed with whatever's going on in your life and in your work. That's okay. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn. Being somebody that wanted to just to keep going and just push through it, you know, push through the injury, push through the hurt, push through the pain. You know, there is that component, and there's knowing your body enough and well enough to say, yeah, there's that, but there's also what I'm feeling today. And today says, don't go to the gym, or don't do this, or don't do that. And that's a lot of, that's a mindset. You've got to learn that, as well as how to be competitive and be that athlete that you want to be, is that it's okay. I remember one time we were at the CrossFit, we were at the warehouse, whatever. Justin was doing a workout. I had come in and Alex was there, and I was chit-chatting with Alex, and all of a sudden you stopped. I'm like, what is that? The dude's in the middle of a workout and he just stopped. And you came over, and the only thing you said to Alex was, I'm just not feeling it today. And you kept going, and you did whatever you had to do before our training session. I was like, okay, so that's okay to do that. You can take a day off or a workout off or whatever and still compete and still get your goals and obtain whatever you need to obtain. But that was mind-blowing. I know that was weird for you. I mean, it seemed like nothing to you, but it was mind-blowing to me to think there is grace and it is okay to do that 80-20 kind of lifestyle. So.
Well, I think, I mean, it's a great point you brought up. I think that a lot of people, they have to learn, right? Through experience, they have to learn when to give themselves grace, and they've got to learn when to freaking kick themselves in the butt and push themselves and tell themselves to step it up or whatever, right? Like, but understanding that, and I think like, at the end of the day, like, we should know our body's best, right? Now we lose sight of that over time because we lose the sense of that. I always say, you know, most people don't know how good they can feel until they actually start feeling that way, right? A lot of people blame them not feeling good, or, you know, looking the way they want to look, or performing they want to perform because of some reason, right? And most of the time it's really just on them. So, you know, I could go off on so many different tangents here, but I want to bring it back to the 24-hour fitness days. So I don't know if you remember, the weight loss, actually, because we did train at 24 for a little bit there before I even went to the garage, because your weight loss, that beginning weight loss, was complete while we were at 24. And then we like kind of made that next transition there. But we didn't start doing the CrossFit there until, you know, in that, I think we kind of slowly started prepping some of the stuff through the garage. And then you actually like really started doing it there at Strong. But talk to me a little bit about the weight loss thing, right? Because at 24-hour fitness there, when you lost, whatever it was, it was 35 pounds or something, right? So you losing 35 pounds after working, because you had worked with that trainer, I think, for maybe like a year-ish. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
A year-ish with like no weight loss whatsoever, right?
None.
And then you were able to lose 35 pounds. So knowing what you know now, what was the number one reason why you lost weight back then and lost that 35 pounds after not being able to for a year?
The way you and I talked about and started logging everything I ate, everything. I mean, meticulous, and everything down to if you had a Fit Aid recovery drink, you put that in there, Mechiel. You got to have that in there. You can't just not count it. That's calories going in.
Were you doing the logging? So you weren't logging food when you were working with the trainer though before, right?
No, they never ask you to do that. Those trainers, generally speaking, I'm generalizing, and I see this in the gym all the time with the trainers, even where I'm going now. It's like they don't ever talk to you about nutrition. They only talk to you about what you're doing to work out and exercise, and you need to get at your cardio. That's always what they say. If you're not losing weight, you need to do more cardio. In addition to what we're doing now, you need to. So in that hour that you're getting trained with them, they want you to come back and do 30, 45 minutes of cardio. Really? So I'm going to spend 2 hours in the gym. And then, but answering your question, what changed it, what flipped the tide was MyFitnessPal and logging all of my food, everything I ate. And literally, I mean, it was like you're going in for a test when you come into Justin and you finish your workout and he goes, okay, let me see your at MyFitnessPal. How'd you do on logging your food? The dude, I mean, at that point in time, you didn't log in on somebody else's account. You like literally looked on my phone and you were like, what did you eat here? Wait, what is this? Why did you eat this? And you talked me through it. And it was the first time I'd ever heard somebody talk about recovery meal, pre-workout meal, how to design a meal. And it wasn't even about fruits and vegetables. It was about, let's get some greens in your salad or your meal or whatever. I mean, I'd even tried, I don't know if you know the HCG diet where you were down to 500 calories and you take a shot in the arm. I'm like, okay, that was craziness. Why in the world did I ever think about that? When all I needed to do was learn how to eat properly. And eating properly doesn't mean a salad every day, although I do enjoy a good salad. It can mean having a burger, if you log it, if you plan it, if you have it all designed and you meet your macros. It was macros, learning about macros, and it was logging my food into MyFitnessPal. That was the game changer. That's how I lost the pounds.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so interesting to really highlight that, because I think that there's so many people out there, right? The reason why your headspace wants to want to do HCG or any of these other things that are out there is because you're frustrated. You're like, what the heck is wrong with me? Why can I not lose weight? I mean, spending the money that you spend working with a trainer for a year and not seeing weight loss can be extremely defeating there. So you're willing to do anything, right? But it's just the lack of awareness, right? It's the lack of education, which that's what you got. Once you understood, like, okay, this is the science of how you lose weight, right? Pick any diet or whatever under the sun, like you have to actually track your food and be in a calorie deficit. So learning that, and realizing that, hey, I mean, look, guys, you don't have to sit there and do this for the rest of your life, but you do need to develop the skill set. You need to learn how to do it, accurately and correctly, and actually use the tool, right? Just like tracking finances and things like that. Like if you go on Shark Tank, as I always say, if you go on Shark Tank, you don't know your numbers, you're going to get eaten alive, right? If you're trying to lose weight and you're not tracking your food, if you're not tracking your calories to make sure you're in a calorie deficit, it's not going to happen. So here's the thing I want to highlight on that though, is that, I work out at Cowboys Fit, right? See all the personal trainers there. Trainers.
Oh gosh.
Trainers and personal trainers are not meant to know about nutrition or coach nutrition or talk about nutrition or anything like that. Now they definitely can, and it's an added skill set, but it's definitely not part of your job as a trainer per se, right? And that's what I know
for people to know. Yeah.
Well, and that's one thing that I noticed, right? Because when I first started 24-hour fitness and I was, doing personal training, I was in the very early stages of college and I was trying to decide, should I get a kinesiology degree or exercise science degree, or should I get a nutrition degree? Right. And all the personal trainers do the kinesiology or exercise science, exercise phys, thing. Right. And so I'm like, you know what?
Yep.
I was starting to understand more and more at that time that nutrition really was the missing link, right? I mean, there's so many people that would come and spend, freaking $100 a session, $80 a session, whatever it was, trade 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, they're sitting here spending $1,000+ a month. And for those that the goal was weight loss and the trainers not talking about nutrition, right? I mean, this is this crazy world that we're still living today, which is people are paying insane amounts of money to work with personal trainers. And if their goal is weight loss, right?
Yeah.
They're doing themselves such a disservice. They should be working with a coach, preferably somebody that knows both of these things, right? To really be able to control both aspects of the equation and really just allow you to get the most, out of your time and money and energy and all these things that you're putting into this process. I see people literally to this day where they have been working out with personal trainer for years, and they look exactly the same. And they're not like they're overweight, obese, whatever. And so their goal might not be weight loss. It might not. I don't want to judge anybody or anything like that. But if their goal is weight loss, which if I had to, sometimes guess, like a lot of the times people working with personal trainers, almost, I would say the majority of the time that is their goal, is weight loss. Right. And so it's just, it's crazy to me. I mean, it literally just does not make sense. I would encourage so many people that are listening to this podcast to say, hey, if you are going to invest your money in a personal trainer, consider maybe working with a nutrition coach, nutritionist, stress dietitian, whatever. If your goal is weight loss there, because you can lose weight doing any exercise program in the world. You can lose weight even without exercising. Right? Because at the end of the day,
if you're doing the proper nutrition,
is if you eat in a calorie deficit. A calorie deficit can be achieved with exercise or without. So, anyways, I just wanted to rant on that for a second. It's crazy.
I read somewhere too, Justin, and it might have been something you said or you recommended, but 80% of weight loss is nutrition driven. And when I saw that, man, I feel like I'm a walking testimony of that. It completely is. And you've got to have a handle on what's going into your body and what your body needs to fuel itself. And if you don't know those things, those factors, then any kind of exercise program you have is doomed for failure from a weight loss perspective if you don't understand what you need to have in your body to make it work.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, so let's transition forward a bit to kind of the CrossFit now, right? So now it's like, man, you've lost this weight, you're feeling so much more confident in your body. This aesthetic goal has been achieved, if you maybe not achieved, but it's you've made so much progress in that area, and then now you want to kind of shift into more of these performance-based goals, right? And so we start to learn some of these movements, these CrossFit movements. We start kind of ramping things up and getting stronger and learning pull-ups and doing all these cool things.
I got a pull-up. It was awesome.
Yeah, doing all these cool things. Being an athlete, maybe for more of an athlete maybe than ever in your life, or that type of really cool feeling, right? So then we're going, everything's great, and then talk me through, right? Because here's the thing. Number one. Back then, I wish I had more knowledge than I had now, but it is what it is. But I think if you recognize, right? Because maybe I could have recognized more back then, even without you telling me than I did back then. I don't really know. But I think that, for the listeners here, what's important is if you're somebody that is working out a lot, okay, I want you to listen really closely and listen to the signs and the symptoms and the things that started to happen to Mechiel, right? And if these things are happening to you, right, or have happened to you before, you need to really, again, think to yourself, right? Maybe I should build some awareness around my intake levels. Because again, I see this all the time. People are not tracking their food. And so they're overtraining, under eating. They're not even knowing that they're under eating sometimes. It's not like they're doing it on purpose, but they are.
Yep.
Right? Or they're on this calorie roller coaster ride. So as soon as you started, right, the big mistake that we discovered is back then I had no idea what like reverse dieting was or anything like that, right? So essentially you just kept eating in a calorie deficit, right? And even with maybe some of the intuitive adjustments that possibly could have been made with bringing your calorie intake up closer to what maintenance was in the 24-hour fitness days, it definitely wasn't meeting the demands of now the fact that you were like doing you were doing much longer training sessions. An hour workout was now turning into 2 hours in the gym or whatever. So what were the signs and symptoms that started to happen? What, obviously having the menopause, people need to remember this too, right? Because it wasn't just the overtraining, it was also the menopause that played the role, and then the stress of the job too. But what were the signs and symptoms that started to happen there?
So certainly the menopause with the hot flashes, those uncomfortable as they are, wasn't really impacting from a workout perspective, because I mean, let's face it, you're drenched in sweat by the time you're done with a CrossFit workout. It doesn't matter.
But I would say, because of the fact that the hot flashes were waking you up at night and disrupting sleep, that was playing a role, right?
I was just going right there. Yeah. The other symptom was the fact that I was not sleeping at night. Not at all. I was having some difficulties falling asleep as well as staying asleep. And when you get to that point, heck yeah, you're going to have issues with your workouts. They're going to be less than what you want them to be. And
so what were you thinking, like, with the sleep piece? I mean, because I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you're kind of just keeping like this sleep piece to yourself, right? So you're like, I mean, like, you didn't really, I guess, know or realize that, hey, like, I mean, I tell clients now, if you don't get 7 hours of sleep, don't work out the next day. You're doing more harm than good, right? If it happens every once in a while, you're gonna be fine. But if it's a chronic thing, right? And so this was something that was chronically happening, but like, you were just like, did you know that like not prioritizing your sleep was going to have these negative effects, or?
No, not at all. I mean, I just figured that there was a lady at my office at the time, and she and I were kind of having similar symptoms. And of course, she and I were both stressed in the work that we were doing. But at the same time, it's you're kind of in life. You're just trying to get through day by day. And I had also stopped tracking what I was eating in my intake. And when I started back up, because you asked me how many calories was I, what are you eating in the day? And I started tracking it again, and we figured out it was only like 1,700 calories for what we were doing, where you were eating, I don't know, upwards of 3,000, 5,000 calories a day. Now, granted, you were doing 2 or 3 or 4 workouts a day. I was only doing the one. But at the same time, I knew that I wasn't fueling my body. And I was still trying to eat as if I was in a weight loss mode. And this was well past, we do 3 months, and then you kind of go into the reverse diet, and the back and forth kind of thing. The other symptoms I had were, lethargy, I guess, very lethargic. I would tell you too, the focus was off. Sometimes at work, I'd really have to concentrate hard. I couldn't just do the work that I needed to do. And all of those things in my head had nothing to do with CrossFit, had everything to do with the changing of the hormones in my system. It wasn't until we got to December of 2016 where everything kind of came crashing down, and you stopped that workout, and we realized that we were not where we needed to be to go into the open. And yet I wanted it so bad that I just kept pressing through. And I remember my workouts at the time, I would see black dots, like I was about to pass out. Yeah, I know, that was stupid. I mean,
it's anyway. So, like, for all of y'all listening to this right now, I mean, like, it wasn't like I was getting this report on a daily basis. Like, this stuff, as we talk about it now, I mean, I'm even like shocked hearing these things. But it's such a prime example of the fact that, look, you could have very well thought that, oh, this is just all because of menopause, right? But knowing that, like for me as a coach, knowing that you're going through menopause, probably the last thing you're ever going to really want to be doing is trying to compete as a master's athlete in CrossFit, right? So it's like, that would have been a perfect example of seasons of life where it's like, hey, it doesn't mean you can't ever compete in CrossFit, but hey, during this season of life right now, what you need is not to never be in the gym, but to do more restorative type stuff, to do more therapeutic type stuff, really focus on the walking, maybe do some strength training, but not like the high intensity trying to PR, definitely not high intensity exercise like CrossFit. Really just like understanding that, man, this is probably going to be a season of life where, doing, trying to be like a hardcore athlete might not be the most appropriate time. But again, it's like, you don't know what you don't know, right? And sometimes we have these things happen to us that we could look at as a failure, or we could look at it as like, man, like I've learned so much from this process and this journey that, being able to pay it forward on a podcast like this and have people listen to it, and maybe somebody else not make, the same, mistake essentially, right, is huge. So
well, and coach, you hit on the key component right there is, and that is the choice and the way of thinking. For me at the time, I didn't want you to tell me I couldn't compete. I didn't want anybody to tell me that my body wasn't going to do what I wanted it to do. I wasn't in that mindset because I thought it was all or nothing. I didn't know there was a middle ground. I didn't realize there was a middle ground. And then when I found out that it was nothing and they literally took it all away, the mindset that I went to was just this really dark place of, why I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing, but I really wasn't. And the key component there is I had to make a switch. And you and I talked about this a lot with the mindset of, it's for now, control the controllable now, and know that eventually we're going to get there. Now, will I be a CrossFit Masters athlete? Probably not, but that's not what I aspire to either. I want to live that healthy lifestyle. And I know so much more now. And what I would tell people is listen to your body and know that there are alternatives. You may not be able to, deadlift your 300-pound goal weight, if that's what your 300-pound or 600-pound or whatever it is yet. Maybe you have to take 4 steps back to get to that goal. And that I think was some of my biggest mistakes. I know it was my biggest mistake to not tell you what was going on inside my body for fear that you were going to take everything away. I didn't know there was an in-between.
Yeah, well, and again, this is, this is where, a coach, this is where I would take responsibility and be like, hey, like this is why it's so important for other coaches listening to ask questions, right? Because again, like even with like the most recent stuff, just top of mind, because I just finished it, but even with like these 2 certifications I just did, like, the level of knowledge that I have about women's health now versus even, a year ago or whatever, like is different, right? So to think 5 years ago or 8 years ago or whatever, it's an evolution, but it just goes to show, it's like, this is why using like a biofeedback tracker is very important, right? Tracking this data, checking in with coach to client and making sure that, like the relationship is there, and that you understand that, hey, like you've got to be open and vulnerable and transparent and communicate, these things, because number one, a coach can't read your mind, right? But at that same token, a coach can be proactive in being able to ask questions, because there's, especially a man and women relationship there in coaching, there is so many things that women feel uncomfortable about talking about. And it makes it way easier when the coach brings it up, right? Obviously in a way that works for that dynamic, but brings it up, because if they bring it up now, all of a sudden it lowers that barrier, and the client now knows that, oh, well, at least, they're aware of this, they're probably educated on this more. They, And just again, like being able to have that clear communication is so incredibly important for the success of both the client and the coach, right?
I tell you what, if you would have had that biofeedback spreadsheet when we were working together back then, you would have seen that I was not sleeping more than 2, 3, 4, 8 hours was not something. I mean, that's it. That you would have totally seen that. I probably would have said that every workout was a failure because I always expected more out of me. You know that. And I wouldn't have said it was a failure. I would have just said, it was okay, until I got to that point where I felt like I was acing everything, which that's just that, there were so many things, and I bought into it so aggressively, and so I wanted it, really bad. And I felt like that I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. But number one, talk to your coach too. You got to talk. The coach has got to be there looking at different things on the biofeedback, but he's got to be able to listen and pick up on certain things too from a woman's perspective. And number two, don't ever not be honest. Like if you had that Whataburger with cheese, tell him, because it's okay. It's all right that you had that, or that you went over calories that week. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's figure out how we can be more successful the next week, or whatever the case may be. I remember one time there was a dude in the gym, and he was big. He was a big guy, and you were giving him all kinds of hell. And I'm like, Justin, what's up? He goes, he said, he lied to me. He told me he was doing the workouts, and he ain't doing them. I mean, I was like, okay, I know I'm supposed to be doing them. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell him, because you can tell. You can totally tell. But there were so many things I should have said and wish that I would have said. But at the end of the day, we live and we learn, like you said, and we just got to move forward and keep moving forward. And like I said, I'm not where I want to be. And I know we've had some successes recently, and I'm looking forward to additional successes. I know what my body can do and where I need to kind of take a break. But I also know that I can push some things now, and I can try some things again, and keep going heavier on the weights. I just got to be mindful of what I said earlier. What I put into my body and what I fuel my body with is so important to get me where I want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I want to bring it back for a second. When we essentially, as we're kind of going through this timeline, right? So we have this happen with the CrossFit, right? And when this happens, right? I mean, obviously we finally get hooked up with the doctors that we need to, right? But there was a period of time, right? I mean, obviously we had losing your job, like you have this gaining of the weight, right? I mean, there's all this stress that's in your life, and like anybody else, right? There's this breakdown, right? And it's like the darkest place, right? It's the lowest low,
right?
And you had to dig yourself out of that, right? And because what happened there, right, is when things start happening to us that are outside of our control, it's so very easy to stop prioritizing the things that are in our control, right? And that led into not using the habit tracker, not tracking on my fitness pal, essentially starting to do things that are actually self-sabotaging us, right? So talk to me a little bit about that, right? What would you do during that? I mean, and look, every single person listen to this podcast has done this before, right? But what, when you started, obviously there's this point you finally break down, right? And you're like, F it, right? And you start just not caring, you can't work out, you can't go to the gym. What's the point? What's the point, right? So you go from a place of essentially all in, right? To slowly but surely back to a place of all out, right? So talk to me a little bit about where the headspace was at there, and some of those mental those mental challenges that you had to overcome to now dig yourself out of that hole, right? And now we're on a trajectory. Just for the listeners here. So when we first started 24-hour fitness, your weight was then we lost the 35 pounds. Then it went up to the highest point to whatever number there, and then now we're 30 pounds down or whatever since then. So just for the listeners, what were those numbers?
Oh, wow. So I think I was just shy of 200 when we first started working together, because I got down to 174. I actually got a little bit lower, like 160, whatever, but 174 was when I really felt great and looked great. I felt I was lean, I was cut, looking at that aesthetics, you know, what I wanted to be at. When I finally started tumbling from that 174, I got all the way up to 255. That has been my highest weight. And now we're back down to 230. So we've made some progress in this first, and that was, you know, 2017 to when I first got to lose weight in 2021. So you can imagine going from 174 and just seeing the weight continue to creep up as I'm trying to eat right, I'm trying to watch my macros, I'm trying to keep the right calories going into my body. And as you said, there was nothing I could control about the weight coming on, because it was all hormonal, it was adrenal. There was just nothing I could do. If I worked out, it didn't matter. If I didn't work out, it didn't matter. To me, in my head, it didn't matter, because I couldn't control it. The weight was coming on. And my clothes, of course, didn't fit. And now I've got a whole closet full of clothes that I'm waiting until I can get into. And it's hard. I mean, as a woman who, and maybe even as a guy, I can't speak from that, but from a woman who so much in society is based on how you look. And I had gotten myself to a place where first time in my life, I liked how I looked. To lose it was so hard, And the doctor saying you can't go to the gym and you can't get into any kind of stress. Well, my de-stressor was going to the gym, you know, shoving weights, working my body. I couldn't do that. What am I supposed to do? Do a puzzle, meditate, just relax. Yo, no. You don't understand. I've been this active for this long. I need to do something. I've got to do something. And through all of that, just now I still do my puzzles because it's just a way to relax my mind. I still do. I don't meditate. I never learned how to do that because just sitting still doesn't do it for me. But I enjoy going for a long walk and listening to, you know, my podcasts from pastors that I love their teaching. And those things were the only things that kept me from falling into that deep hole. And I'm scratching and clawing at the rim of that well that I just feel like I'm falling into. And it was every couple of weeks talking with you and you trying to drag me out of it. And I'll never be able to repay you for that, because had you and I not had those conversations, life would have been very bleak, because the weight just kept coming on. And when I finally was able to go into a gym and start working out, was fabulous, but none of the weight came off. In fact, it came even higher. And it took even going to the gym and trying to do the rowing machine, and I can't get my heart rate up too much. And there was just, it was hard. It was really, really hard to try to have the positive thoughts when nothing you're doing is going to give you the result that you want. And had somebody told me, okay, Mechiel, we're not in a weight loss mode. That's not where we're at right now. Don't worry about losing weight. Just worry about staying positive. Just worry about, don't even worry, basically, but let's just get your body healed. We can't think about losing weight. Nobody told me that it wasn't a weight loss process, that we weren't into it. I didn't know through all of 2017, 18, 19, and 20 that I shouldn't expect to lose weight. Nobody said that, not the doctors, nobody. It wasn't until I started in 2021 when they're like, oh yeah, everything looks great. You're testing this way, this way, this way. And Justin says, okay, let's go into this summer shred or whatever. And it actually worked. And before that, they had me try the keto diet. And nothing was working on keto. I mean, I lost some weight on keto, but by then it was like, I'm tired of fads. I want to get to the gym. I want to start working like I know what worked last time, and just learned how to do it that way. But if I would have known in the beginning when all of this started, and it's only by God's grace that I finally found this nurse practitioner who had the mindset of don't ever get out of the gym, don't ever stop lifting, just take a step back. You don't have to lift heavy, you just have to be mobile. You just have to keep your body moving, and not even at a high heart rate. But you know as well as I do that that's part of what's going to keep you emotionally sound, is going to the gym and being able to just do something. But when I started and they took me out of the gym, that was the worst thing that could have happened to me at that point in time. And then not being able to go for 2 years and not seeing any weight come off, which I guess hindsight, you should have thought that no weight would come off at that point. But still, I mean, I'm tracking everything. I'm logging it. How are you sleeping? How's this? How are you pooping? I mean, everything has to get tracked, you know? It was devastating. And I know some people will go, oh, just because you couldn't go to the gym, you shouldn't have been all upset about that. But it was such a part of my life, and is such a part of my life. And I had finally gotten to a point where I liked going to the gym, because with what we do, with having a program, you have a purpose, you have an idea of what you're going in for, and you got these things and these goals that you're going to meet. And if you don't have any goals, if all of that's out of your control, man, what's the point? I mean, it was hard. And Justin, the motivation that we could talk about, and the controlling the controllable, and I don't know how many dozens of millions of times you had to say that before it finally clicked, that there are certain things that are going on in your life, Mechiel, that you have no control over. And weight gain was one of them. That's hard. That's hard. And I tell you what, I'll see people, women in particular, who are obese, and those that are, you know, eating whatever they're eating, or not doing whatever I think they should be doing. And there was a point in time in my life when I would just be going, oh, you should be in the gym. Oh, you should be eating this. Oh, hasn't somebody told you how to do that? And now I understand that it can be so many more different things. And my heart just goes out to them. It really does, to say, you know what? There's probably things in your life that you can't control. Golly, I wish you had a nutrition coach, or I wish you had somebody who was looking at your hormones and your adrenals and metabolic, or whatever, that you could go and find that person, because there's a better life for you. And there's a way that you'll be able to live a healthy lifestyle. Regardless of how all of this looks, you can be healthy. So I hope that answers your question, but. I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I was on mute because the background noise here, sorry, they were, for the listeners here, probably got some interruption there, but what was I saying? Yeah, no, I think that at the end of the day, the question that you've ultimately got to ask yourself, regardless of the season of life that you're in, or where your weight's at, or what you're struggling with, or whatever it may be, is it's just like, am I living a healthy lifestyle? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Which would mean, am I prioritizing getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night? Maybe there's things that are affecting. Maybe you're waking up throughout the night with hot flashes and it's interrupting your sleep, but are you going to bed at this time and waking up at this time, right? Are you trying?
Yep.
Right? Then with the nutrition, it's like, are you doing the things that you need to do with nutrition the majority of the time? With exercise, with hydration, with stress management, like with these habits that you actually have control over, right? Are you doing these things the majority of the time? Because if you are, you have to be proud of yourself for that. You've got to rest your head down at night, at least knowing that, hey, I'm not doing things to self-sabotage myself even more, right?
Yep.
I don't have the F it mentality and I'm literally screwing myself over here by purposely not prioritizing these things, or purposely doing things that are literally making everything worse. Stress eating, emotional eating, drinking alcohol, whatever it may be, right? So but that's the place that you go to when you get to a place where you're told by your doctor you can't work out, you lose your job, you have the stress of that, you have, you're in this place where you have so much time to be in your own head, right?
Oh, yes.
And so no wonder, right? No wonder you start to go to this negative headspace. So I mean, that was the craziest part, is like for a while there, you were doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, and everything was going in the wrong way. It was going in the negative direction. You didn't have control over it, right? And that's why ultimately, just like anybody else, finally you got to the F it stage. You're like, screw this, right? And I'm surprised, as I told you a million times, that you even lasted as long as you did. I was like, I would have said that a long time ago. So you had it, and you had your period of time there where you were, I'm talking with you here obviously, but it's like where you felt bad for yourself. You had your pity party, rightfully so, right? But it's like, but then you also knew that at some point, regardless of how much longer you wanted to delay it, you were going to have to start again. You were going to have to start focusing on these things again, and you were going to have to start making it a priority again, because it was, the longer you wait, the worse it gets, right? And you were seeing that because the weight was coming on even more, right? Because the activity is gone, the nutrition decisions aren't there, whatever, right? So it's so hard to be able to do the things that that you're supposed to do when you're not getting the results or the satisfaction or the whatever it is that you're looking for, right? And that's the hardest part for so many people. There's so many people out there that they're like, what the heck is the point of living a healthy lifestyle? Nothing I do works.
My 75, I want to be like my friend Nancy, who is 85 years old and still going to the Amazon every year. She walks faster than I walk. The woman was running 3Ks in her 80s. I mean, that's the kind of lifestyle I want to live. And when they finally told me that we should try this keto to try and see if we could lose some weight, that gave me the push that I needed to say, okay, it's finally time to see if we've got everything situated and ready to go. And it's been since, I guess, November of last year that we did the reverse diet. We did the keto, we did the summer shred, and all through those things, it was now, let's get back in the habit of going to the gym. Am I 100%? No, I'm not 100%, but I'm going to get there because I've got the motivation. I want to be mobile in my later years of life.
Well, and I think that the only reason why you've lost the 25 pounds or whatever that you've lost now, other than obviously getting some hormone stuff figured out finally, and, now we get to work out, which is all an added bonus, but you actually ate at or around maintenance calories, right, for a year plus, right? Which is, again, whether there's menopause or hormonal issues or whatever, what we see so often now is if you've been overtraining, undereating, if you've been eating in a calorie deficit for too long or eating in a calorie deficit that's too deep, right? These are the types of things that start to happen. And so, in a perfect world, the majority of the time you're eating at maintenance calories, and going into a calorie deficit, which is a big stress on the body, that's something that's done maybe once a year, if that, right? And so now you're going through stages of it, right? Stages of, again, we know 3-4 months, we really don't want to be in a deficit for longer than that. You lost 25 pounds or whatever with this time of doing it. Now we're back to maintenance here. We're focusing on building muscle and getting stronger and setting yourself up to be even more successful the next time that we bring into a dieting phase. But it's going to take multiple phases to get to, 170 or whatever that we want to get to. And your mindset is okay with that now because number one, you've gotten some results, which is awesome. But two, it's like, you're back in the gym, which is a huge part of mental health, right? So it's not just about the way you look; it's what that does for our emotional, mental health there. And you understand the process that's going forward. You also have new goals for the future. Going back to your mom there with like, it's not just about competing as a masters athlete. Like there's health and longevity and being able to get off the toilet by yourself when you're 90 years old that matters too. So. Anyways, girl, I could go on with this forever and ever and ever and ever. But what I want to do is I want to leave people on a cliffhanger here because we still got more to talk about. Let's end this at part 1, and then we'll be sure to bring back a part 2 for y'all. But this has been awesome. I know that,
Absolutely.
a lot of people are going to get value out of this. And I think that, again,
Good.
there are tons of people out there that are stuck right now. And I heard something a few days ago from a mentor of mine. He said, this was relative to business, but you could also apply it to this, which is, if we're talking about weight loss here, really any fitness goal, he says, if you're stuck right now, if you feel stuck right now, there is either a skill, a belief, or a trait that you are lacking. Right? And if we could go back through this whole entire timeline here, at some points we were lacking skills, at some points we were lacking belief, at some points we were lacking traits, right? And again, as we've started to develop these things, now you're at the point that you're at, and we're not quite there, right? We're not to the end goal. We still have a journey ahead, but I mean, what's a few years of your life to then be able to have the knowledge and the tools and the skill set and the confidence to be successful with this going forward, and to not have to deal with the menopause again after this, right? So we got through it.
Yeah, you and I talked about this too, and if there's nothing else in it for me, if somebody else can learn from it, if somebody else can get just a nugget out of our conversation that we just had, and then maybe in part two, I'll have even additional nuggets for them. But that's my prayer. That's my hope, is that somebody will get a nugget that they'll believe once again in themselves and in the process, that it can and does work.
I love it. I love it.